Great to have. Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I've been better, but I'm awesome, actually.
Awesome. We are trying a brand new platform on A Day with a Guest because
that's a great idea.
come on, Zuck. Hey, we have tried multiple browsers. It's on you now. Stop buying hoodies. Figure out your crap. Fix your stuff. And we have a guest, the amazing Stevie Dawn, who does amazing, great things. We're going to talk about all of that. But what's up, Stevie? It's good to see you.
It's good to see y'all. It's good to see y'all.
So we got to talk about the shirt real quick because Jake and I are fans of power shirts, and that looks like a power shirt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My spirit animal is a great white. You can see one behind me, too.
Yeah.
So, be the shark, always and forever. Stop playing around.
Do you have a shark tattoo?
I actually don't. I have a dolphin.
Oh, what happened?
I know.
Did you shift
different years of my life, different spaces. We don't have to talk about the tequila that was involved. We can just say that there's a dolphin tattoo and there needs to be a shark tattoo, but my husband and I want to get matching ones and we haven't decided on them yet. So.
Okay. Is his spirit animal also the shark, or is he feeling pressure to share a spirit animal with his awesome wife? Is that
I think he would say his spirit animal is me and I'm a shark, so that's
that's fantastic.
Just his head, yes. So we are in agreement with this because he's in the office. So he just said this. So I'm assuming that was towards us. Yeah. That
is awesome. And let's talk about your mic game for a minute, because I see it over here and I'm a little jealous.
Uh-huh.
That's next level.
This is called the Britney Spears mic.
I like
it. So I can rock out in the hair and all the things, and I can still be heard. Yeah. I got it because I'm doing so many webinars these days, and I didn't want to be corded to something. Like I want to be able to move around and do my thing. And so my husband, nice man that he is, decided I needed a Britney Spears mic.
Well, here's why this is really awesome, because Stevie Dawn is actually a very high level dance coach and judge and dancer and performer herself, right? So I was about to make this kind of snarky comment about wanting to see the Janet Jackson routine and stuff like this from Rhythm Nation, and then I remembered that you could probably actually do all of it. Exactly. Exactly. So
also why I love a Britney Spears mic, because as dancers and singers, that's exactly what we want, something we don't have to worry about.
Yes, this is what we bonded over kind of in our very first coffee, because she was a dancer and there's a lot of overlap between dancing and martial arts and the mindset and how you have to work on it. And so we had, actually, Stevie does not drink coffee. She drinks Diet Cokes. I had a coffee. What's up, Manesh? How are you, sir? So we were both just geeking out about how if you're in dance or martial arts for something at the very end of it, you're not going to make it, right? You'll fail, you'll quit and stuff like this. And so in addition to all the coaching that she does, which we'll talk about in a second, she's also a very high level dance person. And the really cool thing is she's also a dance judge, which you don't just get to just show up and be like, hey, I want to be a judge. You have to be invited, and there's a process and everything else like that. So
yeah, although we haven't been getting to do much dancing this year, so it feels a little more like a 2019 thing more than a 2020 thing. I think the last time I was with my dance friends was in January, Martin Luther King weekend.
Oh, wow.
So we've done some Zoom dancing, but it's just not the same. I'm still judgy, but it's just not the same. So I have to make sure that I get to dance at some point, somewhere in the future. Eventually, we'll have a dance again. But I've been missing it for sure. But the shark stuff started out of dance. Because, as John said, just needing to have that competitive mindset, but holding yourself separate from always having to reach that outcome. Right? Because if you just do it to reach the outcome, then every time you don't reach the outcome, you're failing. And I really had that black and white view. And so there got to a point in my dance where I wasn't winning anymore, and that meant I should quit. And I've been dancing 26 years, so there's no reason to quit after 26 years. If you love it that much, you should just keep doing it. And my mother said, what do they have that I don't have? And I said, well, they're younger and they're more flexible and they're just more talented. And she said, no, that's all bull crap. Instead, I didn't even ask if we can cuss on the show, which I probably
You can
should.
cuss if you want.
Okay, so that was bullshit. That's what that was. And she said the reason that they're winning and you're not is because they don't feel they have anything to prove and you do. And I thought that was really insightful of my mother. And she said, you just need to be the shark. And that's where Be the Shark started as a phrase in our world. And I really do look at it as the shark doesn't have to worry about being the predator. The shark doesn't have to worry about the ocean. The shark just is in its space doing its thing. And if I show up to dance to do that, I am always successful. And I started winning again once I had that mindset. And so I don't win every time, but I feel better about my dancing every time. And I took that Be the Shark mantra and just became my spirit animal. I've gone cage diving. I've just taken it and made it a thing. And we have sharks all over our house now. So my husband now lives with it too.
Oh, okay. So first of all, Stevie's mom is apparently pretty awesome. I was never getting any advice like that.
She named me Stevie Dawn. We got to give her some props just for that, right? Of course she's awesome.
Real quick, good morning, Gabe. Thank you for simulcasting on LinkedIn Live for us. We will get there maybe eventually, right? That would be awesome. Good morning, Levi.
Also, yeah. It's Gabriel's birthday, so shout out to Gabe.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, bro.
Gabe?
What up? That's awesome.
We've
21 again, I'm sure. Gabriel, yep. 21 again.
Yep. Always the answer, right? Always.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about what you do professionally, because I think there's a huge tie-in to the stuff you were just talking about on the dance world and the stuff that you do with your clients. And yeah. I've been teasing people all week that we were going to have an emotional intelligence coach on here. So can you kind of give like the 30,000 foot overview, and then we'll pick which black holes we want to dig into?
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, we just didn't know that our emotional intelligence coach was going to have just teeth, like just not what I did with yeah. the emotional intelligence.
Well, see, emotional intelligence, right? People see it as like a soft skill, right? That's always what we're told. It's one of the soft skills. I think that's crap because it is the skill. If you have emotional intelligence, everything in your life will go better. Your relationships will be better. Your leadership will be better. Your communication will be better. You'll get more promotions. You'll win more dance events. It all works. And the truth is that emotions, right, and being able to connect with those emotions to somebody else, that's where the power is in life. And when you talk about things like charisma or the X factor, most of those things have something to do with the ability to emotionally connect. It's not always, right, just about compassion. It's also about emotionally connecting through stories. It's about emotionally connecting through energy and motivation and inspiration. It's all of those things. And so in my work, I really focus on helping people who feel stuck, who feel like their career has plateaued, maybe their dance has plateaued. They've gotten to a certain level and they just can't seem to reach that next goal. They're just stuck. And usually it's a mindset block, right? It's something in their head that says, this is what's holding me back, and we just don't realize it. And so my job as a coach is to figure out what those things are that are holding them back and then give them the skills to move forward. And a lot of what I find is it's emotional baggage, right? It's stuff from 20 years of whatever that they're carrying on to. And if we could just let go of that baggage and move on fancy free, we'd all be a lot better off. So I really look at emotional intelligence as that skill that allows you to control yourself, connect to other people, and have more influence in the world.
So all right. So Stevie and I worked with some of the same coaches, right? And so she knows that I'm a big, huge fan of DISC and everything else like this. And she knows that I'm a C, probably very, very more than she would like to. So as a C and a robot who typically doesn't really want to get involved in emotions and stuff like this, how do you work with somebody like myself? I've moved a little bit, right, through the work and everything. But like if you're talking with someone who's a brand new C, right, like a very smart CPA or engineer or something like this, and they thrive and all of that stuff, and they've got some detachment to like emotions and humans at large. Like, how do you begin to work with somebody like that?
Yeah, well, I think when we look at human development, right, it's head, heart, hands. Head, heart, hands. So first, I have to give you a reason. Since you're a C, I have to give you a reason why you should give a damn. right?
Yeah,
That's the first
absolutely.
and foremost. So if I tell you it's going to make you more sales in your business, you might be more willing to hear me out. If I tell you that it's going to make that relationship with that partner of yours a lot better, so you can stop fighting and stop hating each other and stressing over it, then you might be willing to hear me out. I'm going to have to give you a logical reason because you're a logical person. That's the head part, right? So once I get you to believe that it might be worth it, then I think really it's working on finding those triggers that people have. So bad conversations that people can't get past, or things in their business that they can't get into. Like I can't seem to get in front of this decision maker. I can't seem to do this. Well, maybe it's because your connection with the gatekeeper isn't working. Maybe it's because you're not actually finding a connection point for people. Maybe it's because if you hate what you're doing, that hatred is coming out your mouth and nobody wants to buy from that. And so I think it's really about figuring out how to convince people that they need the skill. Once I can convince their head that they need it, their heart will open up to it. And then I can give them the action plan to move forward, right? But it all starts with being logical. Why does this help people? Because some people, you're right, some people, the S's and the C's, or the S's and the I's, are going to feel more willing to be emotionally vulnerable and have emotional based conversations because it's more in their line. It's more in their character, right? But the D's use emotion all the time. They just use it in a power play instead of in a compassion play, but they're still using emotion. And what I found is with C's, once you give them the logical reason why it's important, they'll do it every time, and they'll do it consistently, which makes them really good at that kind of work, because it's never a, well, some days I do it and some days I don't. With the robot, they do it all the time the same way. So I think that works out well for everyone. And it really is, if nothing else, it's a communication thing. And at the end of the day, no matter who you are, no matter what your work is, you want to connect with somebody. Maybe it's not even somebody in your business. Maybe we're talking about connecting to your spouse or somebody you'd like to be your spouse. You're going to have some emotional intelligence to make that relationship long lasting. So I think you can always find a reason why people need it. You just kind of have to dig a little bit to see what their logical trigger is.
That was awesome. That was legit. Jake?
Yeah, so I love the fact that you're bringing forward the fact that emotional intelligence is the skill. So I am a D and I, so I'm a gut person, so I can connect right into that. So it's not hard for me to connect to that well. But I am curious. So let's say someone says, you know what, okay, let's say I go with you. Let's say that C goes, okay, you got me. Tell me a little bit more. What's common activities or things that you start people with when it comes to emotional intelligence to start getting them to reframe the way that they see things, to go, how can I see this from a standpoint that is more emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do a little exercise all together. So I'll ask both of you for your answers. Anybody who wants to answer in the chat. On a scale of 1 to 10, today, right now, this second, how are you feeling? Scale of 1 to 10. 10 being today is awesome. It's amazing. I'm up at 7:45. So it's an amazing day. 1 being, you know what, I'm up at 7:45. This is not an amazing day. So anywhere between 1 and 10, let's get the scores. How are you feeling today? John, how are you feeling?
You got me jacked. So I'm like a 9 right now. Which
awesome. Okay. Levi in the chat is a solid 8. Jake, how about yourself?
Yeah, I was gonna go with an 8.5.
Okay, 8.5. Perfect. So then my question is, right? Have you ever had a bad day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Tuesday, Wednesday,
right?
Thursday.
So think about a time when you had a 2-day or a 3-day or a 1-day, right? Usually it's, you know, you had that call with your mother-in-law, or you got that email from your boss that you really didn't like, or whatever. But we have bad days. When you have a bad day, everything is harder. Think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting out of bed is harder. Getting to work is harder. Dealing with people is harder. Writing email is harder. Everything takes longer, and everything takes a lot more force. Why? Because our emotions drain our energy. Mm-hmm. So if you want to know why emotional intelligence is important, it's because your energy is how you get through life. And if you are stuck in those negative energies, those negative feelings, they're going to drag you down. They're going to make you slow. They're going to make it so you can't get on top of things. You can't get as much done. You can't reach those levels that you want to reach. So we've got to pick ourselves up. And the only way to do that is to realize, okay, if I wake up in the morning and I'm having a 3-day, how do I make it a 4? What could I do, right? Can't control anybody else. Can't control all the things that are going to happen. What can I do to make it a 4? What can I do to make it a 5? So for those of you that are 8s and that are 9s, what can you do to make it 1 point better today? What's one thing you need to have happen to make it better today? And the big thing about that is not just taking control of us and making our lives better, but our numbers come out our mouths. So when I'm having a 3-day, I take my 3-day out on everybody, right? Everybody around me starts to feel worse because I'm having a bad day. What we have to realize is that we can control that. We can put a little muzzle over our mouths and we can say, just because I'm having a bad day doesn't mean everybody else has to. And I think that's our responsibility, especially as leaders, whether you're a leader in your business or a leader for somebody else, or you're just a leader of your household, right? As a leader for somebody setting an example, you don't want to make their day worse. You only want to make their day better. So how can you, right, take that, we call it a pulse check, right? Take that pulse check and see, how am I feeling today? How do I make sure that doesn't come out of my mouth? How do I make sure I lift everybody up? How do I make sure I have a better day?
So
and
just
the first
framing it like that?
I mean, that's it, right? The first step is just becoming aware. Most of us don't stop to take a pulse check. We don't stop to think about it. We just let our day happen. And then at the end of the day, we go, oh, I was probably meaner to that person than I needed to be. Man, that didn't go so well for me. I wonder why my wife just slammed the door in my face. Yeah, that's because your number came out your mouth. So if we can backtrack that and get that pulse check, then everything else becomes easier. So that's step number 1 for me, is just self-awareness, right? Where are you at in that feeling? And then step number 2, right? Once you get that down, ask yourself what everybody else's number is. Now, don't literally ask people for their number. It's a very different response. And I'm just not sure where you're at. You know, Gabriel, it's your birthday. It might work for you, but just really think about that. You don't want to ask somebody. However, we can all tell by body language, facial expressions, tone of voice. I mean, I used to have a boss that I could tell where I was situated in the building. My window was right by the parking lot. I could tell it was him by the sound of how he closed his door. You ever have somebody like that, right? Like you could tell by the door slam, oh, it's going to be one of those days, right? We can tell people's numbers without having to ask them. So if you go through life identifying people's numbers as quickly as possible when you're talking with them, and then you say, my job isn't to make them a 10, right? I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not God. So my job is to make sure their day doesn't get any worse. That's my job. My job is my conversation with them should not drag them down. It should only make it better. And if you really focus on that, you will find all your conversations go better and you make a whole lot more money.
Man, okay, so first of all, I love that you're putting the talk with the mother-in-law on the downside of things when your husband is literally just off camera.
And you know, last night we had dinner with her and it was wonderful because she's amazing. I just use it because it's what most people understand.
That's completely fair.
So I'm not saying anything. And he knows that, so does she, because she watches these things and she'll be like, yeah, you did the mother-in-law thing again. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Mom. I love you. It's not about you. It's just an easy example. Emotional intelligence says connect with people on things everybody can understand.
That's fair.
There you go.
So would you say emotional intelligence is a muscle that you can grow? Or are you born with a certain amount of it? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I think it grows. I think everybody's born with some amount, right? Because baby knows what crying gets them. We know that as children, right? We know how to pout and get what we want. We know how to throw a tantrum, get what we want. So we use emotions as children, absolutely. So we're all born with some bit of it. I think it grows the more conversations you have with people. I really think it's a skill based around social situations. So if you have a job or have a life where you're just around a lot of people and you have a lot of conversations, I think instinctively it will start to get better just so that you have better conversations, right? If you're getting slapped or throat punched every time you have a conversation, you don't have it and you need to go back and learn some of those skill sets. But most of us don't have that, right? Most of us go through life with quite a lot actually of emotional intelligence. I have people tell me all the time, I have zero emotional intelligence. Well, that's not really true because the fact that you can identify that you feel like you have zero means you have some, because you're thinking about it, right? So everybody has them. It is something you get better at through more conversations and honestly through more self-awareness. The more you can look back through your conversations, I always think of John when I think of this, because John and I used to do role plays, because John loves doing the role play thing when we're doing sales conversations. And he would always ask it, can I role play this with you? I'm like, oh God, I hate that. John loves it. But anyway, but right, in those conversations, every time he does that, he's getting stronger in emotional intelligence, because role playing that conversation and thinking about how could somebody take it? How would somebody respond? How would somebody feel differently? That's going to make you start thinking about those situations when you then encounter them, right? So that makes that muscle stronger. So I absolutely think you can grow it, and I absolutely think it gets stronger over time, but it is something that probably takes some self-reflection and some social situations. I think it takes a little bit of both to really get really skilled at it.
So as a very long time cynic, right? Who was recently coming off the cynical, view of everything. Your idea of we speak our numbers is like all over me right now, because I have felt that, right? And I have been that guy, right? And Jake and I used to work together at a bank, and we both hated the job, right? And so if you go on YouTube, there's these videos of the Chase morning huddle and the 1, 2, 3 drills, and you can see them in there. There's some of the funniest, worst sales videos ever, and they're but like it's pretty game on. And so I would go in there, and we'd have to have this morning, and I would just sit there and surly, right, just like staring at my feet and stuff like this, and then it was. I was always confused why I wasn't killing it on my numbers,
Mm-hmm.
And through all the journaling and the coaching and everything else, that I do now, it's like I can see that. But at the time, I would, anytime anybody was like, "Man, you're such a pessimist," I'm like, "No, I'm a realist." Right. and I even had this kind of like carved out caveat about like why I'm not a pessimist and everything else. And it took me a long time to realize that was not helping me, that. And then I was reading this book recently, and I think as we get older, all these like statements that we thought were cheesy when we're young are now impactful as we're older. But the thing of when misery loves company, right? When you're mad and you're mad at the world and everything, and you go talk to someone and they're just overflowing and bubble, like you don't even want to be around that person, because it's like, man, I want to sit in my crap, essentially my crappy mood over here. And so we go find people who reinforce that stuff. And so if you hang out in that kind of zone for long enough, it's like that's your whole peer group. Like those are the people that you're surrounded by. And I kind of had to go out and kind of change my peer group a little bit, because I was getting reinforced with so much negativity, and that's when things started to shift for me. Mm-hmm. Real quick, Josh Long, who I don't know if you know, Stevie, but he's worked with Scott and some of the same coaches we have.
Hi, Josh.
And he says that Dr. Stevie Dawn is on fire. So
I think it's funny because his first comment was Dr. Stevie, and I put a comma in there. So I said, Dr. Stevie, comma, John is fire. Yes, he is, Josh. I was just going to go with that. But then I like the correction. That makes me sound great. Thanks.
I am not fire.
You are hair.
So,
you are.
Yes, I am hair.
Yes, indeed.
I've known these two people, Stevie and Jake, for a very long time. And actually, Stevie Dawn and I met as a prospect, right? When I was in the website world, we got a lead from somebody. I don't remember who it was. And it was so funny because I was going through Sandler coaching. I had Sandler coaches, and she had filled out the form, and it said, "What sites do you like?" And she put Sandler on there. And I had all this panic. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to call her. She's going to know exactly what I'm doing and everything else like this." And it was so stupid, right? Because at the end of the day, if and I know this now, I didn't know this then, but like if it's the techniques that you're doing and not like the humane element of it, it doesn't really work. So I'm on the call with her. We had a good call, and then I don't remember how long it was after that, but then she showed up in my Sandler class with me, like working with some of the same coaches, and I was like, "Hey, you're here!" And since then we've just kind of become like fast friends. But
actually, I believe his first question is, "You didn't buy. Why not? What did I do wrong?
That probably was
John,
my
right,
first question.
Steve. What did I do wrong? How could I have made that sale better? We had to have that conversation because he didn't sell me. He lost me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but
You
part of the reason, right? And we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I didn't connect with him is because I felt like it was so scripted and it was so regimented, his questions, that I was like, I don't feel like I'm talking to a human. So I was out.
Sure.
Right now, it probably would go very differently for us. But back then, that's how that was. But I do remember that. John's like, you're that person who didn't buy. Sorry about you. Yeah, that's where we're at.
So let's be clear. There were lots of people who didn't buy, and I was always trying to get that
the most
feedback.
memorable.
Yeah, well, I got to see you in person, so it wasn't like, okay, cool. What email do I send now to get back onto the phone to get the learning improvement so that way I can be better next time? She just showed up in the class, right?
Yeah,
and I was like, let's improve right now. Yeah, you guys. For people who know me now, who think that I'm annoying now, like let's back up 4 or 5 years, man. I questioned everything. I trusted nothing. I didn't believe in all of this stuff that I now believe in, and I was just kind of a shit show, if I'm going to be really honest with you. I have Time Hop on my phone, which pulls in posts from Facebook and Instagram and everything else like this, and I cringe when I see some of like the things that I posted 5, 8, 10 years ago, because it's just constantly shoving myself into a spot where I'm not going to perform very well. And I'm like, oh God, I like every day it's like an exercise in humility. And then every year it gets like a little bit better, right? Because the gap between like terrible posts and good posts, is becoming weighted on the good side. But I am a and the other day I asked on Facebook for a public speaking coach, and Stevie like raised her hand, and I was like, you don't want to work with me? And she goes, I like a challenge. True
statement though. I think it would be fun. I'm just like, it would be entertaining for me, which would be fun. I'm down for that. Absolutely.
We will not be documenting that and pushing that out. For sure. I need a safe space.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
Absolutely. We can bring that. But to what you were saying before about pessimism and peer groups and cynics and all these things, something I learned several years ago is the power of positive questions, right? So we tend to, as adults, ask super negative questions, but as kids, we ask super positive questions. And it all goes back to your imagination, right? So like if you think about it, like when a kid is kind of in that superhero phase that all kids go through, right? And some of us are still going through it 38 years old, but anyway, superhero phase, and they tie the fake cape on, and they go out on the balcony and they stand up there. And in that moment, right, in that split second before they jump, they're not thinking about the broken arm. They're not thinking about the whipping they're about to get from their mama. They're not thinking about ending up in rose bushes and this is about to be a really bad situation. All they're thinking is, what if I really can fly? Like the power of that positive question overwrites all the logic that could be there. And something I think that happens to us as adults is our first question is always, what's the worst that could happen? And we say it like it's a good thing, right? Like, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, you're not going to die from it. It's going to be all right. But the problem is, by having that negative question be the first thing out of our mouths, we're training our brain to show us negative responses.
Okay, hold on. I got to jump in here because what is the worst that can happen is the question that actually gets me moving, right? And I talk about this with my partner Melissa, because she is, in her own words, she is the Chihuahua. We're trying to find better words for this, but she's very, anxious and doesn't really like a lot of people and stuff like this. And so she has started to shift a little bit, because I'm like, hey, do you want to go do this? She's like, no. I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, probably nothing. Okay, cool. Let's go. Right. Mm-hmm. But
absolutely.
So how do you frame that the right way then? Like, is it just rewording the question and make it more positive?
Yeah, no, it's asking the positive question before you ask the negative. In other words, we need to ask 2 questions instead of 1.
Oh, that's my jam right there. That second question.
Look at me giving you something. So here you go. You're going to ask first, what's the best thing that could happen? You could show up, you could find somebody, you could love them more than me and leave me. That's the best thing that could happen, right? Now, what's the worst thing that could happen? We could go, we only end up talking to each other, we meet no other people, and we're in the same spot we were when we left. Oh, okay, right? Let's go, right? Worst thing that could happen, I end up in the same place as I started, right? It's about asking the positive first, because our brain is wired to show us we're right. If we ask positive questions, our brain will show us positive responses. If we only ask the negative questions, at some point, our brain is going to say, well, you want to see the worst? Here, let me show you. You're going to get sick. You're going to fall. You're going to have a flat tire. Your car going to break down, all the things. So it's about asking both and using which one. And you identified it right there. Which one motivates you, right? I find when I ask the negative question, all I do is circle the drain, right? Because when I start saying the worst thing that could happen, I could have food in my teeth. I could fall over in front of people. I could spill something on my pants. I could rip my pants. That's something I think about a lot these days in COVID. Right? Like these are all, so I start spiraling downwards because that's not how I motivate me. But when I motivate me and say, hey, what's the best that could happen? I could meet somebody and they could pay me 50 grand. Let's go get my purse, right? Like, when you change if you change the question, you change the answers that your brain gives you. And so it's just knowing which one motivates you and understanding that both are acceptable. If you're somebody who can say, what's the worst that could happen? And the worst thing is nothing bad. Okay, well, then that might motivate you. In my experience, people, in order to get to the next level, they need a positive reinforcement, not a negative. So we got to ask that positive question. What's the best thing that can happen? And once we ask that, then if we need to go back through and say, okay, now plan B, C, and D. All right. But let's first start with plan A. This is awesome, right? Everything goes great. When was the last time we actually woke up in the morning and thought that everything magical could happen to us today? When was the last time we woke up and said, I'm going to get a $50,000 client today? I don't know how. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's just going to show up, right? Your brain is always looking to prove yourself right. So if you ask the right things, your brain's going to give you the right answers. So, and John, that's part of controlling those emotions, knowing what picks you up and knowing what puts you down, and making sure that you're asking yourself those right questions. So,
and John, you do positive affirmations, right? Isn't that something that you have built into your routine?
Well, yeah, positive affirmations. I'm not great at them. I'm going to be honest. I think they're great for other people.
Why don't they work for you?
This is a great question. Because they're a little too, I'm going to go with frou-frou for me. Right? And I have some right here on my desk, right? So I have, I am enough, I am successful, I am worthy. So I have that on my desk. So they work for me in that I like to see them and they do make me feel a little better, but I need power phrases. And affirmations don't do that. So that's where Be the Shark comes in, right? We have Be the Shark written all over our house in different ways. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, because that gets me fired up. That gets me ready to tackle somebody, right? Like I'm like, that's what I need to get going. The affirmations are a little too soft for me. So it's all about where you're at and what really motivates you. Some of my clients do affirmations every morning, and they've really helped them. And I, of course, have given them some to do. So I think they're very powerful for certain people. They're not very powerful for me, but I don't do journaling. Journaling doesn't work for me. I do mirror conversations because I'm not good at writing. It just drives me nuts. I cannot write. Now I can tell everybody and their brother, you should journal, and it makes a big difference. John, doesn't journaling make a big difference?
Yeah.
Right. And it does. But here's the thing. You got to know what works for you. Sitting down, opening up the notebook and forcing myself to write just makes me want to vomit. It is not for me. It never feels good. It never feels organic. What I do is what I call mirror talk, mirror conversations. I stand in front of the mirror after I brush my teeth, when I got my makeup on and I'm all looking good. Hey, girl, we're going to get this stuff you done. You're going to deposit these checks. Can you believe you're going to be on this morning show with these great guys? It's going to be awesome. You're going to wear your shark shirt. I do that every morning. And that gets me so much more pumped up than a journal will ever do. And some days it's harder, right? Some days it's like, okay, girl, we got to work on this. Okay? It's a 2 kind of day, right? And that's where you got to kind of decide how it works for you. But one of the biggest things I think holds us back in self-care, self-development, personal growth is we think there's only one strategy. Everybody has to journal. Everybody has to use affirmations, right? There's not one strategy. It's anything that works that gets you pumped up to have your best life. Who cares? As long as it's not harming anybody else, do it, right? Do it. It's all good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Levi says, let John's Gratitude Friday post be forever changed to Frou Softy Fridays.
I love that, Levi. Totally.
Levi will be tagged in everyone forever, and so will Stevie Dawn, because she is the she's the creator of this thing. Speaking of the journaling, real quick. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
I'll say I've got a new hashtag now too. It's Mirror Talk.
Mirror Talk, absolutely.
I am bringing that because to me that is affirmations. It's just a different way. It's not written down. It's still telling you, hey, you're the shark, bro. Yep. Or you're the shark, or in my case, the owl. That's my spirit animal.
Oh, I love owl spirit animals. Those are great.
We know John.
Yeah. I'm the bison.
John's the bison.
And I have an owl. Actually, I have 2, I guess. All right. Okay. One land and one air. I got. Well, just tattoo wise. So this morning I filled this pad. Like I hit the last page, and you can see like the your pad is full thing. And this has been interesting because this has been my morning journaling pad, right? Which is just my stream of consciousness, which I kind of got from Morning Pages, which is, it's been very interesting. So I do my affirmations on the top, and then I write for 30 minutes of just like whatever comes to mind, right? So like limiting beliefs, thoughts, reflections on conversations and stuff. And it's been interesting because this pad was mostly full. Like there was a handful of pages kind of ripped off the top. And so some days when I sit down to journal, I'm like, there's other stuff I could be doing with my time. But I'll tell you, when I hit the bottom of the page on the last page, just now before I got up and walked in here,
feels really good.
Yeah, it was pretty redeeming. And now I'm gonna set this thing on fire. Like, because the big thing about Morning Pages, right, is that it's about capturing the stuff and then filing it away. So this is not like something that you should go back and like reflect on and stuff like this. It is just about getting all the BS that's like on the top level of all of our heads out of our heads and onto the paper. So
at my events, we call them burn parties.
Oh, really? Okay.
We have burn parties. Yeah. Write down everything anybody else ever said to you that you actually thought was true.
Oh.
Think about that, right? Your dad telling you you're stupid, your sister telling you were fat, like all the things. Write them all out. And then we go out. So I do these retreats. We do them all over. But our last one last year, we did out at this cabin in like Springtown, Texas, like way out country, right? 40 acres of nothing. And we went out to the fire pit. And so everybody's write them all down, right? All the things that anybody ever said to you that you thought were true. Now you probably know they're not, but you write them all down. We take them out and we throw them in the bonfire and then just watch the smoke. It's great. I love burning.
Great thing. Well, because my thing is that I know that if I don't do something with this, if I don't get rid of it and I keep it here in my desk, I keep it here in my orbit, I'm going to feel, well, let's go back and see how far I've gone, which is not the purpose of this kind of journaling, right? My evening journaling session is much more about like trying to grow and stuff. That's right. 2 sessions a day. And so that's much more about like, okay, like let's go check in and see, are we having positive momentum forward? But this is just like getting the crap out of my head, limiting how things can grow and morph in my mind, because what's the worst that can happen is often something that I talk about in here, because as a C, right, I need to be right more than anything else, right? And Jake and I talk about this incessant need of mine to be clever, right? And it shows up in conversations, it shows up in the habits and the hobbies that I pick up and stuff. So this fear of like being wrong or being perceived as being wrong is terrifying to C's, and for a long time it was terrifying to me. But that what's the worst that's going to happen? Oh, somebody might not like me. Who cares? Kind of thing. So
absolutely, no, it's super powerful, and I think it's just all of us understanding that our emotions come from our thoughts, right? So the more we control our thoughts, the more we think about the right things, the better our feelings are going to be, which means the better our results are going to be in the end. And I think too often we let our feelings drive us because our feelings tend to be a lot more we're a lot more cognizant of our feelings, right? We feel them. So it makes it really easy to know I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling good. It's really easy. Whereas thinking back to the thoughts of what made me feel bad or what made me feel good is a lot harder to come by, right? And that's where people use journaling or people use those questioning techniques, because we're trying to figure out, why do I feel the way that I feel? And if I can figure that out, then I can change it, right? When we talk about emotional resilience, right? Emotional resilience is the ability to get knocked down and then reframe it to be a win the next time. And so how do we reframe things, right? Instead of standing in front of the mirror and saying, I'm fat, or I've gained 20 pounds since my last LinkedIn headshot, or whatever it is, it's standing in front of the mirror and saying, I'm strong, I'm healthy, right? And those change of thoughts make a change in feelings, which is going to result in a change of actions. And I think we're not trained really as people to focus on our thoughts and our feelings enough. We kind of go with the flow. We get into ruts, we get into routines, and we just kind of go with it without really analyzing, is this actually helping me? And is this getting me to where I want to go? And I think that's how we end up stuck or plateaued or feeling like overwhelmed with all the things and like, how did I get here? Well, because we didn't take conscious thought stops along the way. I really think we have to do that, right? Just stopping to examine your brain. What are you thinking? How are you feeling about the situation? And make the reframe, right? Change it up, make it different, and own your own destiny, right? Instead of letting it be that external circumstances dictate how you achieve things. I think we need to get rid of that.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with the cognitive dissonance that happens sometimes when you go, but I am 25 pounds overweight and I am not a healthy eater?
Right.
But I'm going to tell myself that, because I want to be a healthy eater. Because like you said, certain days I can get in there and be like, this is a good day. This is an 8 day, and I'm a healthy eater today. I know I am.
Right.
Other days,
right. Yeah. I think the thing is, right, is it's okay to look at it. You don't want to lie to yourself, right? That's real important. We don't want to lie. So I used it as an example. I would never stand in front of a mirror and tell myself I was a healthy eater, because that's just not true. I mean, I think my dinner last night was Cheetos and maybe some chocolate chip cookies. Like, this is my diet, right? So I know exactly why I weigh the amount that I weigh. That's okay. I think it's about deciding what's important, right? So is what you're working on important to you, right? And so often we get stuck focused on things that actually aren't important enough for us to make a change. So there's no point in me standing there and talking about, I'm going to be a healthy eater. I'm going to be a healthy eater. I'm not. I don't care enough. I'm good with who I am. I still work out. I still feel good. I still dance. I'm good. I don't need to try and force something just because the world tells me I should be. No. And so I think some of it is just understanding what's important, like what really matters to you, but then also setting yourself goals, right? So saying if it is important that you lose the weight, don't make it negative, right? Don't always pick on yourself for the weight and think that's going to drive you to lose weight. Right? So if we think of the whole cycle, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, right? That's the whole circle. So if my thought is I'm overweight, which leads me to feel shame and guilt, but shame and guilt leads me to eat ice cream, and eating ice cream causes me to gain weight. I proved my brain right. My brain said you were overweight, and I just made myself more overweight because of my actions, because of my feelings, right? Instead of going in and saying, okay, I am overweight. How can I change my feeling about that? How can I make my feeling about that be something that says, but I'm in control of it? Because usually when we get overweight, what we start to feel like is we have no control.
Absolutely.
It happened. And at this point, there's nothing I can do about it. There's always something you can do about it. You just have to decide that it's worth it. And so at that moment, stopping that thought and saying, okay, instead of letting it bring shame and guilt, let it bring inspiration. Let it bring motivation. Let it be the encouragement you need to get on that bike, to go for that walk, to do that run. And what do you need to get that done? How do you motivate, right? One of the things that I think we all need to identify is what motivates us, right? I'm competitive. I'm super competitive. If I want to achieve something, I need to have somebody there to say, well, I'm doing 5 million. And I'm like, oh, well, then I'm doing 6. Like, I need the competitiveness. So if I want to lose weight, I got to get somebody involved with me to make me want to compete to do that. So I think it's about knowing what motivates you and then making sure you're not letting those thoughts of where you're currently at. We don't want to lie to ourselves and say, no, but I'm fine. If you're not fine, you're not fine. But let's own it and let's figure out how to motivate our change rather than just letting it continue to be a rut that we're stuck in. And again, it all depends on, one of my favorite questions that is negative, but I love to ask it to people. What's it costing you to stay where you are?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, what's it costing you, right? At the end of the day, when I look at certain things in my life, certain things in my business, the cost isn't that bad. And so I don't need to change it yet. When the cost gets bad enough, I'll change it because it's costing me too much to stay in one place. But a lot of people, what's costing them right now, like this is costing you pain. This is costing you to lose money. This is costing your marriage. Okay, those are drivers. Like, let's fix those and move forward. But you got to know what is it costing you? Because if it's not enough, you're not going to make a change. So I think it's not about lying to yourself. It's looking at what's the motivation.
There are a ton of nuggets in there, but real quick, we'll talk about the nuggets in a second, but real quick. So Gabriel says that this should be a weekly segment. I don't know that Stevie wants to spend every Friday with us, but she has a group. She does lives in there all the time. She's always dropping this kind of value and fire in her group. So we'll put a link in here somewhere, or Stevie can do it. Join her group because this is what she talks about all the time, and it is really, really good stuff. Josh has kind of a statement in here, and I'm curious to your thoughts about it, right? He says, I often get caught paying so much attention to my thoughts that I miss my feelings and miss the actual phenomena around me.
Oh, yeah.
What, like, when you hear that, Stevie, like, what, like, do you have any thoughts, advice? Like, how do you minimize that?
Right. So, sometimes we can get so stuck in the thinking process that we never allow our bodies and our attentions to go to that next step. Right. So I never should spend more than a minute or two thinking about my thoughts. Really, a minute or two of any one thought is enough because it's gut instinct, and you got to listen to that. So if I think, oh, I wish I was thinking a little bit differently about that, let me spend 1 or 2 minutes on it, and then let me see how that feels. Let me just sit with it and see how it feels. Sometimes we keep over analyzing. You can't get stuck in the analytical, right? Because there's going to be plenty of time for that when you reflect on what your results were. That's where analysis comes in. If you haven't gotten to a result stage, don't overanalyze. Change the thought, look at it, change it, see how it feels in your gut. Just give it a couple minutes. It doesn't need 25 minutes. It doesn't need 3 days. Just a couple of things. You will know in your gut instantly if this is something that's going to work for you or not. We all know that as soon as we say a thought. We know if it feels right or not. So just go with it and move on. Don't allow it to be something that you get stuck in. Wait till you get a result, then you can analyze the result. And then we could change things. But that first thought, if you're just getting stuck in, well, what if I thought about this? Or maybe I should think about this, or stick with one thought and see what your gut reacts, how your gut reacts to it. If you feel good about it, go with it and just feel it and move on. If you don't feel good about it, change it, try a new thought. But it should be something you do rapid fire. It's not something that you should spend time on, because you'll lose the world around you and you won't be able to live in the moment. And part of this is we have to experience things. We have to be alive. So that means we can't get so stuck in our head that we're not living, that we're not getting some of those other things that we need. So I think just making sure that you don't get stuck there, just go ahead, feel it, realize you can overanalyze your thoughts after you see your results, not before. So that would be my advice there. And I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. So
I mean, and when you're 21, Gabe, I mean, you can eat anything you want. I'm 40, so like, I can't eat that much ice cream. And just real quick, Stevie talked about something in there that a lot of salespeople miss, right? If there is not enough motivation to change, and if you're a coach or consultant, or something like this that requires like a change in belief, if they don't have enough motivation or enough pain to like actually make that change, to invest that time, you are a nice to have, right? And she was talking about, weight a second ago, right? If somebody approached Stevie right now and they're like, hey, I can help you. Don't you want to lose weight so that way you can dance better and do all these things better? If she's feeling like, you know what, I dance just fine, I'm perfectly happy where I'm at, there's no sale to be made. There is no transaction that's going to happen, because change is very, very difficult, right? In all instances of it. So if you're not really getting deep enough into the conversations, right? And this is where I was lacking, honestly, for a very long time, because I just thought that if I had these techniques that I learned from these coaches, I would be able to sell magically, and that everything was going to be a win. And so every loss was very, very hurtful, because I was relying too much on these techniques as opposed to like the actual trying to connect with the human on the other side of the conversation, which is kind of my focus now. But if there's not enough motivation, there is no change. And then you're just either a number on the page or you are nice to have. Both things are not ideal when you're trying to sell. Real quick, Jake has a hard out at 8:45, so we got to do a little bit of work real quick. Stevie, you're going to see kind of what we do here. Jake,
absolutely. Are
you good for the week, sir? You get all your bill bets done?
Of course. Speaking of, we always have stakes, because guess what? We run from pain. We run away from pain. That's how we get started and run towards aspirational things. So we have stakes, Stevie. That's what we do. And at the end, if we don't make it, we pay up. But I made it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm good. I was done every day at 4:15 this week. My project sprints have been cleaned up. I have on here to go 4:15 to 4:30 to do some mobility training. I didn't get to do that yesterday, but I did do it when I got home. So I have been doing some mobility stuff all this week. So my bets are good. Stevie, we kind of take one business, one kind of family, and one kind of like self-care, physical kind of bet for the week. And then we place a bet, and then we kind of have this. Jake is my accountability buddy, right? So we're on here every morning. We talk about the things that we're going to do. And then the goal is, right, because a lot of people are motivated by fear, but we have this component that a portion of the bet, if we do everything right, we get to keep and spend on like whatever we want. And because we're trying to shift from being fear driven to being positive driven, right? Oh, the outcome here, whenever I do the things that I can control and I own my steps and I own my time and my intentions and everything lead to these things. So therefore I can reward myself. So it's kind of the big thing here. And Jake is my gatekeeper on how much of the money I get to keep and spend on whatever I want, because he knows my goals and he holds me accountable. So if I pick a bunch of crappy bets, he's like, okay, this is 10%, man. Like, this is Bush League, So we're trying to hit the 20% and the 30% payouts of our bet sizing to make sure that we're like really owning and seeing the results of taking action and owning our stuff. So
yes, scarier, especially your bets get higher payouts.
Yes. Stevie, thank you. This was awesome. Like,
you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Thanks for hanging out this morning. This was fun. So thank you.
This was huge. Thank you so much. It was funny. I've been kind of in a funk all week, and this was, I kind of came up out of the funk a little bit, but this was exactly what I needed today. You've got amazing energy, which is awesome. If you guys are watching, please join Stevie's group. I'm sure we can get it into the comments.
Well, and it's called Always Be the Shark. You can't miss it.
Cannot miss it. Cannot miss it. She has coffees. She has all kinds of stuff in there. It is really good stuff. If you like what she's talked about today, there's a lot more that she talks about in the group. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Stevie.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. You guys have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bill?
Thanks, Stevie.
Bye. Have a good day, Bill. You need anything today? I have a super light day, actually, which makes me wildly uncomfortable, but we'll get through it.
All right. Well, I'll call you when I'm drowning and you can help. How about that?
Absolutely. Please do. That's why I'm here.
Awesome. All right.
Everybody, have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.